style show. Now, who doesn't, even the men here, who doesn't love a style show? So Ann Foster is here from Bozeman, and she's presenting a vintage historical costume style show, and she's an archivist and living history interpreter, and she will present clothing and culture in the Victorian and Edwardian eras, showing authentic clothing. So join with me in welcoming Ann Foster.
Thank you. They apparently did not make hobble skirts to do more than hobble in. But what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the history of clothing as it would have been worn here in Montana. So we'll start with the beginning, the territorial era of Montana, and then we'll continue on until we get to the great event that we're celebrating this year. In addition to your own anniversary, your 50th anniversary, we're also celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage in Montana. So we'll continue through those first 75 years or so of Montana's history and talk about the fashion, not only what they wore, but why they were wearing certain things and what made those changes, what influenced the fashions of the time. So we will start with those people coming on the wagon trains to Montana. And we'll have Megan. Megan is wearing what you would think of as a wrapper. So back east they would have worn this when they first got up. And then we would have worn it sort of like what we think of as sweatpants today. It's something that you would wear to do housework in. It was fairly comfortable. You would be able to bend. You might wear a sensible stay rather than your full day dress corset. And it would be something that you would work in. So it was something that they wore when they traveled west because they had to do an awful lot of work while they were doing the wagon trains. Of course, they would have layover days on the wagon trains where the men could rest, but the ladies still had to cook the dinners and prepare for the next couple of days on the trail, bake the bread and things like that. So the wrapper was wonderful in that regard. It was adjustable. You could also wear it for maternity wear, and it washed well. So it was usually made out of a cotton, and it was something that you could wash and get the dirt and the dust out of as well. She's got her pinner apron on. There's no straps. It has straight pins. I'll have you perhaps step off if you want to hang on to me. All right. And let people get a slightly closer look as they walk through the era. So you might have thought of this something like a prairie dress. You may have seen this sort of outfit during the bicentennial celebrations. And this is what that look was based on. Now this is the day wear outfit. This would have been what would have been worn in 1864 when we became this territory of Montana. So she is wearing a hoop under her garment. This is a wool garment. I actually made this garment to wear in the summer in Arizona when I was down there. Wool is, you think of wool as a warm weather garment. It's actually also a cool weather garment. So you want to be able to wear it, you can wear it both years. It also is considered, these hoops are considered to be very liberating for women. Now, it's hard to get in and out of a carriage, but the big difference is that prior to this, they had to wear 5 to 8 petticoats underneath to get the same kind of poof of the skirt, and the hoop eliminated about half of those. And so you reduce the number of petticoats, you were able to move around a lot better. You were also much cooler, because you get this lovely swamp cooler effect going on underneath the skirt. So now some of you may have worn a hoop in the past. We're going to borrow this from Teddy here real quick. How many of you ladies have had the unfortune of wearing a hoop skirt, say, to a prom or a wedding, and the hoop went over your head accidentally? I know that a lot of people feared that. Well, that's actually a 20th century to come out. Bailey. Make it up. So Bailey is here in our circa 1880 era. So we are getting close to statehood. We're not quite there, but we're almost there. Now, if you'll turn to the side, they need to see your lovely profile. She's wearing a bustle. And there's quite a lot of bustle back here. Because she is a very tall, thin girl. And that was all just for show. So the hoop actually had a function. It really relieved the women's ability to move. It got rid of some of those petticoats. The bustle, on the other hand, was pretty much all for show. And what it was for show for, if you'll turn around, it was to show off the trim. Because you put more trim, and yet more trim, and yet more trim on top of it for your clothing. That was because you had the money to have the trim. You also had, now the factories that had made the Civil War uniforms turned to making commercial clothing. So instead of hand making your trim, you now were able to purchase a lot of your trim. You could purchase commercial lace instead of having to hand make it. And you can imagine the difference between purchasing commercial lace and tacking it down compared to hand making every little bit of lace. You could quadruple the amount of lace that you could put on a garment. Now we're going to move into the 1890s. And all of a sudden, instead of all this focus on the skirt and the hoop, the focus becomes the shoulders and the sleeves. Now, one thing we haven't yet talked about is the 18-inch waist. There was no such thing as the 18-inch waist. They've actually done a study of corsets that were in the museum collection. They laced them up, they measured them. They did 100 corsets. Exactly one corset measured 18 inches around when laced all the way closed. One out of all the 100. The thing is, you never ever lace your corset all the way closed. You always leave a gap of about 3 to 4 inches in the back. So none of those corsets were for 18-inch waists. The smallest one was for perhaps a 20 or 21-inch waist. And the vast majority were more like 25 to 27-inch waists. Now, in addition, instead, what all those tiny waists that you see in the photographs were for? Optical illusion. If you had the child in 1901 and her son, Prince Edward, becomes king, that's how we get Victorian and Edwardian eras. So in the Edwardian era, we get a little bit of a new look for women. This is menswear for women, believe it or not. She is dressed to go to work. And that was the big change from the 1890s up through the turn of the century, was that women start to go have our Montana cowgirl. And out here, you all are probably quite familiar with the Evelyn Cameron photographs, where she actually does photograph several sisters who ran their own cattle ranch and would actually do their own branding, dressed pretty much like this. So she has got a split skirt on. If you would unbutton that top layer. So it looks lovely. It's perfectly appropriate skirt. But if you need to jump on the horse and pick up a stray calf, and then that just buttons on this side. Yep. Now you've got a split skirt and you can ride astride, which is a lot safer than riding sage saddle. Maybe not quite so elegant, but it's a lot safer, especially if you're chasing down a stray couple of calves or something like that.